Gousse down in Bar Harbor. And Dr. Gousse, we want to try and follow up after the board meeting on Monday. And I guess let's just kind of recap with everyone. First of all, everyone acknowledges that in-person learning is the best scenario, and that kids and parents and students will all benefit the most from in-person learning. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
With a small caveat, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to tell me the caveat?
Well, we're in the middle of it's not small. We're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right. But I think all things
Yeah.
being equal, and should
Yeah.
that, okay.
100%.
Okay. So your recommendation to the AOS 91 school board, which they adopted, was to start on September 8th and with 100% remote learning through September 25th, and it will be evaluated no later than September 21st, and individual schools will be treated differently.
Well, yeah. When I say differently, Chris,
Yes.
There are some schools that may, in fact, be ready to open in person with students and staff before the 25th.
Right.
Actually, yesterday I was at every one of the Outer Island schools, and they're making incredible progress.
So they may, in fact, open up sooner than September 25th for in-person learning.
Right. If we're ready, and the caveat has always been making sure that we have our personal protective equipment in place, making sure that we have completed the training, making sure that we've done the things to ensure to the public and to our staff that it is safe to return to our buildings.
Okay. One of the things that has come up is the situation of neck gaiters.
Yes.
What are neck gaiters going to be allowed, or is that still to be determined, or where are we with neck gaiters?
My understanding, Chris, at this time, well, I'll give you the short answer. The answer is going to be most qualified. We're going to be releasing a handbook to parents and staff very, very soon that will answer many of these questions and some additional pieces. I'll just say that the information changes, and so I want to give a very careful answer. And when we started out, these face shields, we thought they'd be okay. We now know that they aren't as a singular approach. So before I give the answer and have everybody's rushing to purchase gaiters, I want to make sure that our team is vetted with the hospital and in concert with the main Department of Education and CDC guidelines. My understanding at this time is that those are allowed, but I want to be certain before everybody makes an assumption. And so we'll be updating our handbook accordingly.
Okay, so do not rush out and purchase these, but as of today, August 13th, they are allowable, subject to change.
That's correct. And what I can tell people is that for nothing else, whether it's gaiters, masks, or anything, it's really important for kids and staff to start acclimating now so that they're ready. And I think people are doing a great job when I see people out in the community. When I talk about acclimating, you certainly, whenever you're in any public setting or whenever you're in a group, it's important for people to make sure they're using those. And that comfort zone will develop over time. It's not perfect, but it gets better, at least for me, when I'm practicing and I'm using it.
Okay. There is a question about personal protection equipment. You have placed an order with the state. The state is supposed to be supplying things, but you don't have everything as of right now. Is that correct?
That is correct. Let me qualify that as well, that the state placed an order for all public schools based upon student and staff enrollments that was in their database. And they're doing a nice job supporting us in that arena. Like any other supply commodity, we're all competing for these limited resources. I don't want people to panic's not a good word, be alarmed that we're not going to be having anybody, staff or students, come in the buildings if we don't have the equipment. That's one of our checklist items. We are receiving things, and we're going to continue to receive them. I actually spoke to Hancock County superintendents, and so it really is just about continuing to make sure that we check that website, that we're monitoring our orders like we would if we in our own situation personally. There's things that are in the queue that will come in. That said, the hospital, MDI Hospital, has put in an order to support us additionally with 10,000 masks. That's incredible. That's extraordinary. So we'll have that support. In addition to the limited supplies that I purchased early on as startup materials for staff. So I'm confident we're in a good place. And I think when I say that the material is flowing, I'm in talking with other superintendents, that's true of all the communities around the state. So I don't think anybody needs to be alarmed, but yet I want to assure people that we're not going to move forward if we don't have those materials. And I'm confident we will.
All right. So somewhere on Facebook, and we all know what Facebook's like, but John Gertrude from the Tremont School supposedly sent out an email. Are you collecting, for example, hand sanitizer with alcohol content of 60% or higher, Clorox or Lysol disinfectant wipes? I mean, if parents want to donate this, is there a central area that, multi-layer cloth face masks, Ziploc storage bags?
I think we certainly would, I applaud Jandria and the principals for that. We certainly applaud any or would welcome any support. What folks need to know is we have to make sure that the materials that are donated or supplied, number one, they're unopened. Number two, that they meet the standards. So there are some products out there on the market. This is not one of them, but there are some products I'm aware of on the market that are not authorized for use. And we have to make sure that anything that we bring into our schools is on that approved list, and it meets. We have material safety data sheets on them as well. So we're working with the fire department on how much of this material we can store in the building and on site, and what those products may be. So I think that's fine, Chris. I just need people to know that it's really important that they kind of try to do the pre-screening and make sure that things are unopened. And I will say this, if there's anything that we can't use that's donated, we'll certainly work with other organizations that may not have the same standards we have to make sure that those materials are utilized.
Where should people donate those supplies? Is there a central location? I mean, to the high school, or where?
I would encourage people that have that interest to contact the building principal. Okay. As Jandria did that outreach, I think that I don't want to speak for the principals. I think they'll welcome the support, but my sense is that stockpile will probably be in an alternative site or location so that we can continue to meet safety standards.
Okay. And then the other thing is that I did see something on social media, which I thought was funny, is that this year you will not fail kindergarten for not sharing, because sharing is not encouraged. So you are going to, every child's going to need their own crayons, their own pencils, their own markers, their own glue sticks, their own scissors, all of that stuff. So those kind of traditional school supplies could help, because obviously, for a class of 15, you can't do with 5 scissors and share them around.
No, I guess I was chuckling, Chris, because I'm thinking, when we were raised, and we tell kids all the time, caring is sharing. We're going to have to change it up to wearing is sharing. I mean,
Right.
wearing is caring. What I
Yes.
would say to that is the principals and the teachers have done an amazing job planning for this. And this is where we can't communicate fast enough with parents and families and staff. And we're trying to get information out, but we're trying to, well, no, we are getting information out, but we want to make sure that it's layered and we're not overwhelming people. What I would say to that piece is that, yes, in order to make sure that we do everything to minimize, not going to eliminate, but everything we can do to minimize risk, we should. And many of the things I've seen, the good examples are those little plastic bins. They're not real large. Every student, elementary, I'm thinking right now, having their own little bin where they'll have their crayons or they'll have their pieces and books.
There's no lockers, there's no cubbies, there's nothing
Right.
like that.
Yeah, those materials will have to be pre-assembled and placed in the bins. And yeah, and I think our little guys are, they're really good once we set the parameters. And there's lots of ways to make this a way that they feel part of the process. I think it's gonna for in talking with the elementary educators and the principals, I'm confident our kids and our families will rise to the occasion. But yes, Chris, it's going to look different, and it has to. It should look different.
Okay. I know that there's a lot happening. Everything is kind of kicked into overdrive once that decision was made on Monday.
Yeah.
Where are you in terms of the building committees reopening? I guess kind of just fill us in with what's happened Monday night. So Tuesday, Wednesday, half of Thursday.
Well, let's put the decision into context for a second, because look, I've spoken to a lot of people. Some are supportive of the decision, some very concerned about the decision, somewhere in between. People have done surveys, information changes. I think it's fair to say that I won't say all over the board, but people are in different places on this question. And what compounds that is the fact that we're labeled as green, and green means go. And so folks want to know, wait a minute, if we're looking at data, why is it okay that the state labels us green, and why aren't we going to in-person instruction? And the answer to that question, and it's a good question, is this: all of our schools are different, and all of our communities are different. And to say we're coded as a region is accurate. But I would contend that Bar Harbor looks very different than Surrey. It looks very different than Frenchboro. It looks very different than portions of Ellsworth. And so our buildings are going to be ready at different times. As I said the other night, because of density and because of logistics and because of just physical layouts. And let's remember, it doesn't matter whether it's not specific to MDI. Our schools weren't built with a pandemic in mind. And so the capacities, the infrastructure, the systems all have to be navigated carefully. One of the ways that I'm doing that, or we're doing that, is consulting with environmental experts. I actually had an individual out at all the Outer Island schools. So these individuals are going to be able to conduct these assessments and tell us what we need to pay attention to, tell us if we're okay based on their recommendations to move forward. And that will look different in a one-room schoolhouse than it will in a multi-classroom situation. So I think the way we started this is really important. Yes, we're starting remotely with the goal of moving towards in-person instruction safely, or the hybrid model, if you will, in concert with, there will be some families and some students that still select the remote for the year, and that's okay. This is, to say it's a moving target is fairly accurate, because so there's a lot of things we need to consider. And I guess I'll just stop or end this piece by saying the critical component for us is this testing program. This is going to be one of the tools, not the tool, but one of the tools that we can use, and we're so blessed to have it. I'm not aware of any other school system in the state that has it, because of the support of Jacksonville Avenue Hospital, of being able to be testing our staff, not students, of our staff, that mirrors the testing that's going on in Bar Harbor right now with frontline employees at Indian National Park. So having all of those things in place, I think, will provide us with the data that we need to make informed decisions, and we will be reviewing that constantly.
So you're going to be testing staff.
Chris, just for the record, that's your dog, not mine.
Oh, yes. It's one of my 3 Great Danes. Yes.
Okay, yes.
So you're going to be testing staff. This is all done voluntarily.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that there are protocols in place, because if someone is asymptomatic and find out that all of a sudden that they are positive for COVID-19, then there has to be, counseling and all of that with it.
Right. And the protocols we're following aren't school department protocols. I'm not the expert in testing. The hospital and the lab have that expertise. They have programs up and running. So we are aligning, working with those entities to have our program mirror those protocols.
All right. Awesome. Anything you want to add besides asking my dogs to stop barking?
On the testing, it's just really important to note it is voluntary. It is employees. It will be 20% of our staff, and the results aren't coming to the employer. The results aren't coming to administration. The results go to the individual. And as you mentioned, Chris, we work through those medical professionals and entity, maintaining confidentiality, but doing all the things we need to do if there are positive tests and we have to do contract tracing and all that. That's really important. I think the other thing that's really important is staff, now that we're approaching a target date that we're getting closer, people should really be looking for more information regularly from building principals and buildings. These building-based teams are going to determine the status level of and readiness of buildings to receive kids and staff. And that's where the power and the capacity will come from. And it's a little different. So getting those communications and asking questions of the building principals and the school staff are really, really important. We're all trying to hold hands countywide, statewide, and district-wide. But sometimes holding hands means that, along the way, there have to be adjustments and phased in. And that was true even before the pandemic with our district. As an AOS, that's one thing that we're very aware of and I think very good at.
Okay. I think there's quiet with the dogs. All right. What we'll do, what I'd like to do is, subject to your availability and building principals availability, is to continue this chat at least once a week, so that way we can get this information out. And should there be, news that needs to be disseminated, do it as frequently as necessary.
Right. I'd like to have, rather than me talking all the time, Chris, which I'm happy to do, I think it's important to public, and you asked some questions of our building principals. So we couldn't get that scheduled for today, but next time I think having a couple of principals there in elementary and secondary would be great for you. And if there are questions that people want to submit to you, we'd welcome that. That would be great. And I do agree with you. It'd be great. I'm happy to continue these on a weekly basis. It's been a real benefit for us to be able to get information out. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks very much. Have a good day.
You too, Chris. See ya.
All right.